Hi, I'm Pat McKay, and I'm the manager here at the Rochester Hills Museum at Van Hoosen Farm. The month of May is known as Historic Preservation Month in the United States, and history is alive and well here in Rochester Hills. We have been doing historic preservation throughout the museum site for the last 45 years. And this episode, I'd like to look at what we're doing inside the Van Hoosen Farmhouse to protect some of the furnishings and to make sure it's a rich and wonderful experience for all of our visitors. Our first item I'd like to talk about are the rugs that are scattered throughout the Van Hoosen Farmhouse that we'd like to share with you. And we have been doing some preservation work on these. The Van Hoosen family documented nearly every artifact in their house. They loved this house. They lived here for 5 generations. And in their books, their autobiographies, they go room by room and almost artifact by artifact about each of the items in our rooms. Our first one about the rug, I'll read you a little passage about the rugs in the Van Hoosen Farmhouse. While in China, we purchased 3 casual rugs to be used in the house which we intended to build. We were in the earthquake of September 1st, 1923, and having the rugs with us, we lost them in the quake, since they were in the Yokohama hotel, which sank to the 2nd story. When we were home and the house was planned, we knew the sizes of the rugs required to fit the floors. Therefore, we wrote the factory in Peking, asking them to make up a new set for us. Prices of Chinese rugs in the late 20s were not the equivalent of domestic rugs, being lower in price. Sarah Van Hoosen Jones, Chronicle of Van Hoosen Centenary Farm. As part of our preservation plan in the Van Hoosen Farmhouse, we looked at these Chinese rugs, trying to figure out how to place them, knowing that we're getting 15,000 to 20,000 people a year walking through our buildings, trying to preserve all the finishes and the floors and the artifacts on the buildings. The rugs have been getting used for the last 45 years. And we've started making some decisions this year to start moving them off the main course of the building so that they're not being touched. And as part of that preservation effort, we sent them out to a local vendor this year to get them thoroughly cleaned and analyzed. The Van Hoosen family also had pets in the house, namely cats throughout the house. So we are still doing some preservation effort to remediate anything from the pets and the cats that were in the house. So the rugs this year were thoroughly cleaned. Some of the fringe areas had to be repaired. And really, we just wanted to analyze the rugs to see if they were in good shape. We want to tell the story of this remarkable family with the artifacts that they purchased and put in the house. The colors of this rug with this beautiful pink colors reflected on the walls that are surrounding this building. They changed the color of the walls to meet the needs of this rug here. And so we are determined to make sure that these rugs last for generations to come, long after we're all here, and we'll always be able to tell an accurate story of the finishes and the furnishings of the Van Hoosen Farmhouse. Our next artifact is this beautiful winged back rocking chair. And I'd like to read the passage from the family. It says, "In the morning, she would read a novel while sitting in her big winged willow chair, clad in a black skirt and dressing jacket." This is a story about Sarah Taylor. And Sarah was married to Joshua Van Hoosen. And after Joshua passed away, she lived with her daughters, and the daughters took great care of her. This is one of those artifacts that's not something that was store-bought. It goes back many generations, well over 100 years. The problem with it is as it's aged, it has also become very brittle. And we've had this off display for almost 15 years. It just wasn't safe for us to put out there and run the risk of somebody touching it or sitting in it or anything like that. So we had it. The hard part was trying to find somebody who was skilled enough to deal with this kind of material. And we were able to work with some of our historic preservation consultants that are in southeast Michigan. And we were able to send this out for repair. Once again, these repairs are expensive. It runs into the thousands of dollars trying to figure out how to repair some of these delicate pieces. And especially to find the same material that's weathered and strong enough to withstand some of the environmental conditions that we have now. The chair references Sarah Taylor. She would sit in this chair waiting for her newspaper when she was in Chicago, and that's where this chair had moved to. And then at some point, as the family relocated back to the farm, when Sarah Van Hoosen Jones took over the operation, this chair came back home. And this is where Grandma would sit in this chair. Dates well over 100 years old, and it's one of our remarkable pieces of artifacts that goes back because it's made with material that's found right here on this farm. So willow trees grow all over the museum property because of the amount of water that we have. Willow trees love that water. And this family is just one of those typical that would use the resources that were available to them. For us now as a historic preservation process, we have to find people who can repair these. We don't always have that skill set on staff. So we search far and wide and very patiently wait until we get the right person to make sure this is an artifact that you can still enjoy. The fireplace in the living room of the Van Hoosen farmhouse is another place where we've done some historic preservation. The family was inspired to build this based on the same things we do when we're building a brand new house. They were flipping through magazines and they found a picture in a magazine called House Beautiful Magazine. They took that picture and gave it to their architect, and they designed this as a colonial revival fireplace to make it look like a colonial house dating back almost to the Revolutionary War. They were very patriotic and always wanted to capture that. In the 1920s, that was a very popular trend of architectural styles. So they wanted this look, and this is an operating fireplace the family uses to generate heat. On top of the fireplace are two lamps that we use. They are gifts to Sarah Van Hoosen Jones's father from his brother. And he had traveled to Greece on sabbatical. He was a professor at the University of Michigan, and he had brought these lamps back as a gift. The problem we've had over the years is they've tarnished, and at some point, the lampshades were broken. We had pieces of them, and we were able to find local vendors who could glue them back together without making any seams. And so these were off displays for many years, but this year we have been able to put the money together to get these lamps repaired, get them cleaned up, and have them operational here at the Van Hoosen farmhouse. Above the fireplace is something that was added after the fireplace was built. It's a gift to Bertha Van Hoosen. Bertha had lots of patients. The family nicknamed them GPs, for grateful patients, and they would give her a gift instead of paying her. She worked on the barter system quite a bit. The challenge we had with this beautiful piece of artwork was that the paint was coming off it, and we had to figure out how to get that paint reattached, really to repaint and touch up. So we had to find artists that could match the paint with the same kind of consistency, the same kind of quality of paint, and the same colors. And we were able to find vendors locally in Southeast Michigan who could do this. These kind of historic preservation projects take not only an extraordinary amount of time for us to find the right person, because we usually just get one opportunity to do it right. It also takes an incredible amount of money. And that's why we raise money all the time, trying to make sure that we are putting this house back together exactly the way the Van Hoosens left it, because we want your experience to be the best ever. Our largest historic preservation project this year was the re-wallpapering of Sarah Van Hoosen Jones's bedroom at the Van Hoosen farmhouse. She loved this bedroom because of the location. She could look out the windows and look at the barns, and the barns were operating 24 hours a day. So this was a very significant room for her to see what was going on, as she's the boss of running a major internationally known dairy operation. Our challenge was to recreate the wallpaper. The wallpaper had been damaged over many years of a leaking roof. Some of these leaks had happened while the Van Hoosens were still living here, and those leaking roofs, either from ice damming or just from poor shingles, had resulted also in some plaster damage. So we knew we had some stains. We also knew we had some plaster damage. The challenge was taking a section of wallpaper off and sending it to get it reproduced, and that was very challenging. We got it digitally reproduced, and then these are rooms that are not perfectly square with lots of really funny angles, and so we were able to finally get a calculation as to how much we needed. And then the challenge was, how do you get it installed? And we're fortunate in the city of Rochester Hills, we have some extremely talented staff people in our city's facilities department. Mike is a wonderful guy, and knowing his background with painting, we asked him if he would be willing to tackle it. He had done some wallpapering before and also understood some plaster repair, which was really challenging for us too. So we were able to take the wallpaper off, go back and reapply the wallpaper, repaint everything back to the original colors, and get this room put back together the way it was when the Van Hoosens were here. The family documented their house extensively, so we really know where everything went and the stories behind everything. One of our fun challenges here was that as part of our process, as we started pulling off the top layer of wallpaper, we realized there were 2 or 3 other layers underneath there, and we have left some of the old patterns here, so guests, as part of their experience, can come here and see the different patterns the Van Hoosen had. You know, they're similar to us. You know, they would just re-wallpaper as a new design would come, or as wallpaper might start looking tired, or especially the ceilings. If the ceiling started cracking with the plaster, it was a great way of hiding any deformities in the plaster, was just to put wallpaper on top of it. We have replaced all this. It's ready to go. It's exactly the way the Van Hoosens had it, and we're looking forward to sharing it with you. The Van Hoosen Farmhouse is a remarkable historic preservation project. For over 45 years, the City of Rochester Hills has been protecting and preserving the contents of this home. We've added window shades, we've added storm windows with UV protection, and as we talked about today, we have taken care of the different rugs from China, a willow rocking chair, lamps, beautiful artistic work over top of our fireplaces. We invite you to come out and enjoy the historic preservation projects we've been doing to see how historic preservation is alive and well in Rochester Hills, and also to recognize the financial commitment. The museum staff certainly puts the time and effort into reviewing thousands of images and reviewing hundreds of hours of oral history on the family that lived here, and so we can do an accurate interpretation. But ultimately, we do rely on the financial assistance of our donors and the City of Rochester Hills to make this building come alive and to preserve it, because it's listed on the National Register of Historic Places and certainly one of the most significant buildings in American history. We want to share it with you. If you would like to consider a donation to the Rochester Hills Museum, we will have information on the bottom of the screen. We'd love to have you become not only a member of the museum, but a financial contributor, so that we can ensure that this building will be here for now and for years to come as we celebrate historic preservation in Rochester Hills.